at least once in a lifetime you should travel with your siblings. You've been playing around with words, with brands, with communication. You even had some good awards, 40 under 40.
You know, people have become very robotic, especially in corporate. I was never taught the right way of worshipping. I don't want to get into something where it's just so transactional. You know, I feel God would not be like that. This man stood in the queue for like 5 hours, and I probably, maybe for me, even an hour was too long. I'm here in this car, in this air condition, and somebody's on the road. Why that gap? You feel powerful. You feel that, okay, I can just do anything. People are around me. You start to enjoy that. That's where the problem comes. दान उस चीज का करो जो तुम्हें सबसे ज्यादा प्यारी हो, because that's where the sacrifice. अब आपको कोई कैसे मैनिपुलेट कर लेगा? वो आपको पैसे से नहीं खरीद सकता, वो आपको कुछ और चीज का लालच नहीं दे सकता, वो आपको कुछ नहीं कर सकता. तुम तो बहुत ही खतरनाक बन जाओगे.
More than like a marketer, you're talking like a psychologist now. So what are the psychology books that you read? Show by Nagma. Hi everyone. Have there been instances in your life where from the outside you look completely amazing, you feel or people feel that you are at the top of your game, but inside you're falling apart? Nobody knows about this. Welcome back to another episode of The Next Show by Nagma. And today with me, I have somebody who's written a book that I would say is something more like a soul searching. It's a thriller. It's a fantasy world. It's a thriller. It's an amazing, great read. But more than anything, what I loved about the book was that it really connected few things that I really didn't know I needed connection with. Or even you could say that it kind of healed few things that I didn't know healing. I was crying like crazy. I mean, trying to hide my tears, of course, but at the same time, the book was a very beautiful journey. So with me today, I have the author of Rising Before the Dawn Breaks, Arshika Srivastav. Arshika, welcome to The Next Show.
Thank you. Thanks, Nagma. I'm so happy to be here on this show. I've been actually waiting to have a chat with you. In fact, what you just spoke about my book is exactly what I think every author wants to hear. You know, because that tells us how much, you know, you've connected with the book. So thank you so much.
I did, in fact. I mean, you have no idea how I connected with the book, but it was great. It was a great read. How are you? What's going on in your life now that the book is out? I'm sure you're working a little bit in around marketing the book, but what else is going on?
Oh, I mean, life as usual. I mean, I'm with a day job, as you probably know, and yeah, I'm just going on a trip with my daughter just tomorrow. So excited about that. Also, probably I'll be starting to write my next book. So yeah, let's see. I don't know.
So is this travel that you planned for the purpose of writing a book?
Yeah, I have, but I don't know how much I'm gonna write with my daughter around me. But yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it. So I'm just learning to do both the things together.
Interesting. So travel. How often do you travel?
Oh, I travel a lot. I mean, that's what my colleagues think. Though I think person who travels, it's never enough. And I love the short breaks that I keep taking every now and then. But yeah, I mean, I love to travel with family, without family, solo. So I like to do all kinds of trips. So I plan it in a way that I do one bit with my family. Family, you know, like my husband and my daughter. Something I'll do with my parents or my sister, or you know, with my sister-in-law. So I try to kind of do different kind of travel with different people,
and you don't mix these people together.
Sometimes yes, but not too much, you know. Then I think it's only a chaos.
Oh yeah, I can agree to that. There was a reel that I was watching recently talking about at least once in a lifetime you should travel with your siblings, like nobody else, not your spouses, not your parents, anybody, but just your siblings. Have you done that?
I have, and I think that also brings out a very different version of you. Because, you know, siblings are the people who actually, because your childhood has been common, right? They know exactly the right trigger points of you. So when you kind of mess around with them, they'll hit you right at the spot. So I think initially, but thanks to the last trip which I did with my sister, where thankfully there was no fight. we've always
God.
end up fighting, and
Yeah.
I think it's such a huge fight that we both will have that after that we are always telling each other we're never going to have a trip together. But then that's the
Interesting.
beauty of it, and then later on I just realized, why does this happen every time? What is wrong with us? But I think it's interesting. I often think very deeply about a lot of subjects, and I feel that definitely, we know why we are doing it, and
And you still do it,
and
no
we
matter
still do
what.
it, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And then when you go into that self reflection, you realize, okay, you need to correct this.
Interesting. So, okay, coming to your life, because by profession you've been a marketer, you've been in communications for the biggest part of your career. So you've been playing around with words, with brands, with communication. You even had some good awards, 40 under 40 business
Yeah.
women. So that is also something going on amazingly. But when I read your book, yes, there is a corporate drama that's going on in the book, but the character that you built, Kyle, she's somebody who feels deeply. And that is not really something that we associate today with the corporate single mom kind of the vibe that we are trying to create. That's not something that we, on a very normal note, associate with. But Kyle was somebody who unapologetically felt about things. She was sensitive, even though she had huge, humongous loss in her life. The way she coped with grief was something else altogether. But instead of giving up, she came out stronger. Now, is there any relationship between the character and the real self you? And was this like a real choice that you wanted to portray a character like that?
So I think I've never met a woman who does not feel deeply.
Yeah.
I think every woman I've met, especially the women around me, they are very sensitive. They think very deeply,
Yeah.
and they also, with a lot of years in corporate, you learn to conceal that part of you. You want to look perfect
Yeah.
to the world. Oh,
Yeah.
it's
You
a
wanna appear
breezy.
strong.
You'll say, oh, I manage my child. Oh,
Yeah.
I do this also.
Yeah.
Everything is so beautiful on Instagram. It
Yeah.
looks perfect.
Yeah.
But actually, reality is not that, right? And I just wanted to peel off all those layers that a women wear, to kind of show that this is how I am, and she's not, right? Why to show yourself as perfect when you're not? Just be real. So I think that character is something which I see in every woman, including me. And I want women, or any person for that matter, to deeply connect with themselves. So, just cut the fluff. Just go deeper and understand who you are as a person, because I think we're just chasing things without any direction, without any meaning. We just want to. And I think maybe it's a millennial thing. I don't know. Because, we grew up in a way where we were constantly told that you need to be best in academics, you need to be do this, that. That we've so much gotten used to that whole corporate rut and this and that we just don't find time to kind of go deeper and, touch our core. So I think one was that intention. And the other thing which, I saw in my experience that, people have become very robotic, especially in corporate. There are no emotions, there are no feelings. Even if, the next person is in the hospital, the first thing that comes to your mind is like, when are you joining back? It's not, the deeper empathy is gone. People don't really think that how that person is. They're only, trying to count the number of leaves that you've taken. And I've experienced that also. And there were moments when I felt that really, is that what I mean to these people when I'm working so hard? So I also wanted to switch on that empathy. I also wanted people to have a little moral compass. I feel that it's okay to do well. It's okay to be practical. It's okay to be logical. Of course, we need to, right? Life is practical. But the choices that you're making every single day, which are these small things, and, it just kind of I would say it's a ripple effect. Like
Yeah.
if I start my day with an irritated mind, thinking that, oh my God,
True.
my cook did not turn up. Now this is not happening. Now
True.
that is not.
True.
My entire day is going to go like that. Same is for the life. When you kind of do something in your day where you are not empathetic, you keep on building that kind of a person inside of you, and you keep on adding one brick every
Yeah.
single day, and you create
Yeah.
a whole wall.
True.
So I thought wherever you are in your life stage, there, just learn to break those walls at the right time. So that moral compass is the message which I really wanted to give to people. That don't think that you alone are too small to change things. Every person is so important. As you say, one brick after the brick. That's how a wall is created. So every person counts. Every small action counts. And
that's a line you used in the book also.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of times we hear these quotes and people saying this, but sometimes it just sounds very conceptual. Like, okay, great, but doesn't really
work in the real world.
Yes.
True.
So I thought, okay, let me create a story where I will take you on a journey. Where I'll say the same things which you probably must have seen in Bhagavad Gita, everywhere. You must have read these things somewhere. But I'll just connect those parts for you so that you see the whole picture.
Interesting. So the character Kyle, who's Kyle to you?
So I think Kyle is a person who's trying to discover herself. A lot of times things that we do or the choices that we make, we think that that is who I am, right? So in Kyle's journey, for example, when she was with Abir, she wanted to give up her career. She doesn't want to focus there. She just feels, I want to give my time to the child. That's coming from the lack of time that probably her parents gave her. It's not who you are. And then she becomes this ambitious woman because life puts her into the spot where she has to be a career woman. She has to take care of her family. So then she thinks this is her identity. But that's also something which life is just giving you a chance to be, right? But none of this defines who you are. So what does define, who Kyle is? I think that's the journey in the book, and that's how you understand how you define yourself.
So if I may ask you, how do you define you? Because it was interesting how in the book, when there were instances where Guruji, I think, was asking Kyle, who are you? And then she started talking about, no, I'm the secretary to the CEO, whatever. Then the next thing, no, not that. Okay, I'm the mom to this person. No, not that. Who exactly is Kyle? If I have to ask you, just for the sake of our listeners, who is Arshika? What would your reply be?
So I'll say I'm a seeker who's learning always. I mean, there's so much that I still need to learn, but I think what I have discovered so far is that I am a voice of your heart, and I will be very, very raw, and I will actually stir something in you through the way I write or ask you the questions or do anything. I think I am that voice, and I think I just kind of bring that raw person who you are right in front of your face. If you're ready for that, then I think, a lot of people can't handle me even at workplace. And they keep their arm's length because they don't know what I'll say the next thing. And honestly, sometimes even I don't know what I'll say.
That's a good thing, no?
I think it's a good thing. I don't know. But yeah, I think I am that person. And I think I've always been that person. But to some extent, maybe, the world told me, okay, conceal and don't be that blunt. Don't be this, don't be that. So a lot of times, I took that and I tried to kind of always speak with care. My words were always, even though people would say I don't weigh my words, but I have learned that, at least in the corporate settings. But I think still sometimes, I would just say what I think is true. It's very difficult for me to kind of not say what I feel. So I think that's how even the book is. It will, just bring out that uncomfortable person in you right in front of you.
Interesting. Nice. That's good to know. Now, from what you said, I'm trying to figure out, because somebody who's been in the corporate world a lot, and even like now, because I've read your book as well, I've seen Kyle's character journey as well. Have you always been a seeker, or is it something in between that changed and then you wanted to get into meditation and yoga and all of those? Like, was it a change or has it always been so?
So, I mean, because just today I was at my, the house where I grew up in
Yeah.
Delhi, and I just found out this book which I wrote as a kid, these poems, and I was just reading, and very interesting things I wrote in that. I was asking the meaning, the purpose, and why am I even living? Is my life meaningless? All of those themes, and I was
Yeah.
just sitting with it, and I'm like, wow. I mean, some of the things were so profound. Like when I was even reading today, that what was a 15-year-old thinking while writing all of that? And I mean, I felt was too deep for a 15-year-old. So I think what you are at your core is always the same.
Yeah.
Life experiences shape you. You become something else. You want to
Yeah.
prove yourself. A lot of things happen on the outside. But I think at your core, you will still be a seeker. If you are a seeker, you will be a seeker. Maybe you will lose direction, because, obviously you need to earn money, you need to do things.
Sure.
But you will come back to where you started. So I felt like a complete circle today when that, that diary was, because I was literally
And looking
there's
at
this-
literally what you had written so many
and
years
there was
ago.
this poem about meaning of life, and
Oh, wow.
I actually felt that I found the meaning. So there was this poem, I don't remember exactly how I wrote it, but it
Yeah.
was about, if the angel comes to me today, what am I going to ask? So the angel can give me anything. It can give me money, it can give me fame, it can give me anything. And I'm asking that I want my purpose. I want a meaningful life. I want to do something for people. That's what I asked. And, I feel, wow, as a 15-year-old, I was asking that. And today, I feel I'm in the right direction. I mean, I did not go back to that, book in so long. And I didn't even remember that I wrote something like this. So, very interesting,
It's a very deeply insightful 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Nice, interesting. But how do you connect, like in the busy corporate world that you are in? Because you've worked with some really big names in terms of companies and the kind of job roles that you have been. It's always been busy, and it's always that front-facing corporate roles that you have been. So how do you connect the spirituality that you have reconnected with and the daily job that you have, because you're still working?
Yeah.
How are you able to find that balance between your work life, your spirituality, your writing? How do you find the balance?
I think, spirituality, I would really not call it something which is like something outside of your life, right? It is something which it's you, right? It's your soul. And even if you're not doing any meditation, even if you're not doing anything, I would say, a person who's attached to the soul, who can deeply connect with the soul, is a spiritual person. I mean, that's my definition of. I don't really attach any religion to it. And actually, I have, because I grew up in a family where we were never even taken to temples, except Dilwara temple, to see the carvings and things like that. But we're not really people who. I was never taught the right way of worshipping. I mean, I would go to church, I would go to Gurdwara. So, I mean, you want to go, you go, like just like how you go to a pub, you go there. It was like that. I am in a family where, you eat non-veg, you drink, like it's very openly done. So, I mean, those kind of things were never taught to me.
Okay.
So, I mean, I always, in fact, I used to, when maybe I was writing those poems in that age, I used to stand outside the temple, even if my parents or anybody around me was going. I'm like, oh, it's so crowded, I don't want to go. I'm okay. I used to actually avoid temples because I found that, I mean, I don't want to really say anything negative, but at that time, in that age, I saw how priests were just taking money and, this and that. I did not really quite like it. I just, as a child, I thought that I don't want to get into something where it's just so transactional. I feel God would not be like that. So I didn't feel connected to any God for that matter. So I used to stay away. I used to tell, my parents also. Sometimes, they would go pandal hopping during Navratris and all. If you're an extended
Yeah.
family, I used to literally sit in the car and I'm like, you go, I'll be here.
What do you feel now?
So now I have realized that I do like quiet temples. I like places where you could sit
Yeah.
and meditate and maybe feel. But if it's like a rushed thing where, there's huge queue and, people pushing. In fact, I even felt that spiritual experience in one of those kind of temples. So I remember going to Kamakhya Devi, and it was just very random of me to tell my husband that I want to go to Kamakhya Devi, and he's like, okay, what's wrong with her? Sometimes she doesn't want to go to temple, and now she wants to go, and that to Kamakhya Devi. Where did you? Maybe I saw some podcast. I don't know where it came on my feed and how I saw and how I got so much into, that I just want to go kind of a thing. So he was like, okay, I'm listening. So then I was so adamant. He booked my tickets. He said, okay, then take mom. You have to take someone. I don't want you to go to Kamakhya Devi alone. You take someone. I said, okay, I take mom. So I went with my mom, and again, because Kamakhya Devi is one temple which is visited by so many people. So we were standing in the queue, and I decided that I'm not going to pay anyone for a quick entry or anything. So I stood there. I was actually very early. I was standing in the queue and everything. But then I realized that aaj to number nahi lagne wala hai, the way, because the line was not moving only. So then one priest came to me and he said that I can get you the entry and all. And that moment I felt that, see, it will be a waste trip because tomorrow I have to leave. There is no way that I'm coming again. So in that moment, I thought, okay, maybe this is how God wants me to experience. So, I mean, I have the money. I can afford this. So let me just go this way. So I paid him whatever. And then I was sitting in an air-conditioned room. So they asked us to wait, people who got the passes that day and all. And a man was sitting next to me. And I just happened to ask him that, how did you get here? Did you also pay the Pandit and all? So he said, no, I was in the queue 2 a.m. in the night. And I came at 5:30. And I was like, we both are sitting at the same spot, like next to each other. This man stood in the queue for like 5 hours. And I probably, maybe for me, even an hour was too long. And we were at the same spot. And then we were taken, there's this one, queue which you have to follow to go inside the temple. And then the people who were actually waiting outside, they were asked to come to the same waiting area where we were sitting earlier. And the stampede which I saw, like people just to get into that room, I think that moment shifted a lot in me. And I felt, I'm not part of that. I'm standing here. They are standing there. Why that gap? All of that started playing in my mind. And then I felt that, this is exactly the spiritual experience you need to have in a temple. It's not when you are inside the murti or somewhere. This experience, this is what life is. And I think from there, I started noticing, sometimes I see, and I always go back and I see, okay, I'm here in this car, in this air condition, and somebody's on the road. Why that gap? So, you keep going back. And then when I read obviously about karma, I used to question all of these things as a kid. But then I think even when I was reading Bhagavad Gita, a lot of those things started making sense to me. And while people may argue, may not argue, and, you could keep doing that. But there are a lot that, one is that we cannot understand. The privilege, if you're getting, how do you acknowledge that? Because that is exactly the life lesson. That is exactly what the universe wants you. Feel everything you feel, because if you're not feeling, it's a waste, because you will again go back into the same thing again, and you will be this time on the other side to know what it makes you to. So I mean, if you can't feel the pain of the person who's standing in the road begging, then you will be the beggar tomorrow for you to then feel the pain of that person, because that's what is life. Because you need to learn those lessons. How can you not learn the lessons? Just enjoying the privilege in this life and then just leaving it like that, it won't happen like that. So just keep acknowledging that, just keep living in the present to kind of really feel each and everything that you are, the gratitude, even the pain of the other person, to everything. And sometimes I do things intentionally to also feel. After I did my Vipassana, I think I'm quite, blessed, because I don't have to really cook in the house. I don't have to do the dishes. I don't have to do
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
So sometimes, so when I went for the Vipassana, obviously it was not easy, because, you have to live a life of a bhikshuni, in the
Yeah.
sense
Yeah.
you have to just, in a way, sleep on the floor.
Yeah.
It's not the floor, it's a pavement, like a, like a stone, like a marble thing.
Yeah.
And there's a mattress which is
Where
as
did
thin
you
as
do your
this.
Vipassana from?
I just wanted to. I don't know. I just feel like I want to experience that side also. I
Okay.
want to know what
And
it
this
is
was
to
recent.
not.
Was this
It was
recent?
last year in
Oh, that's
June.
pretty recent. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, this didn't just before your book got released.
Yes.
Huh,
So,
interesting.
so there you have to obviously wash your own dishes.
Yeah,
You have to
of
do all
course.
of that. So after that, I have tried to continue that. So for example, in my office, I mean, again, call it privilege, people would wash my tiffin
Yeah.
and things like that. So I told them not to. I will
Okay.
do it on my own, though poor people, they are always thinking, why is she doing it
Yeah,
on her
yeah,
own?
yeah.
But I just thought, okay, let me do it, because I think those kind of things you need to feel, you need to experience. You just can't enjoy the privilege. That's how I feel. I don't know. I mean, a lot of times I kind of think, is it making sense? So I don't really share these things. I
Okay,
think I'm talking about it very first time on any platform
interesting.
like this.
So,
But
in general, if we are talking about life and experiences, I'm talking about your personal life, your characters, everywhere put together, privileges, as you tell it. In a lot of way, we work hard, we try to earn, we try to settle in, is basically with the purpose of wanting to earn a lot of those privileges,
Yeah.
because that's where we want to separate ourselves, and that's where we somehow associate relaxation with having the privileges as well. So now with you, who's been to Vipassana, who's been spiritual in your own ways, and who's built a book which is really into like a deep diving into one's own journey, how do you actually feel in terms of, because you're doing a job, you're trying to earn because you want to do something, but then again, privileges is something that you are also trying to step away from, or basically distance yourself from that as well. How does the contrast work for you?
No, I think I think what I learned in Vipassana was to keep a check on your ego.
Okay.
So I think a lot of times when we are, building ourselves professionally, that ego goes unchecked.
Okay.
When you start getting those privileges, you feel powerful. You feel that, okay, I can just do anything. People are around me. You start to enjoy that. That's where the problem comes, because then you want more and more of that. It's addictive. Power is addictive.
Very true.
So you would keep on doing things to get more of that. And that's where the line between, the moral compass that we were talking about, right and wrong, starts to blur, because now you are so addicted to the power that sometimes you will not even notice the person. Let's say, if I want that chair, I will just go grab that chair. I will not see if somebody else need that chair more than me.
True.
So, that's how it becomes. So I think sometimes, and in Hinduism, they say about dhan, right? Actually, it's very important. I think we've really gone away from the roots of that. We think that if we kind of, let's say, feed some people, once in a year, we've done our bit, and that kind of a thing. In fact, I was reading that book, sorry if I'm forgetting the name, I think Life of a Yogi. So in that, in fact, he was talking about his family and how they used to do dhan, and in the very initial few chapters, and even that got me thinking that how we've really moved out of that the connection with people, because it's not about just giving away things. One is, of course, not attaching yourself to anything that you own. And in fact, I always say, daan us cheez ka karo jo tumhe sabse zyada pyari ho, because that's where the sacrifice is. If you're giving, let's say, some leftover food in your house, that's not daan. So sometimes people, I think maybe that message has gotten diluted in these years, and people have started kind of reading it like that, because just they want to do a check into everything,
If
that
you've done particularly
I've done
something.
my good deeds,
Very true.
kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I think, I just feel that when you are doing all of that, that's where your ego is kept in check, and you are also, very, very humble. Humility comes in you. And when that comes, and I think Singham movie ka hai na, what is that dialogue that sorry, I'm just so bad in dialogues, but there's this this mein hai dum, so that's
what
is that dialogue?
right. No, I'm not able to remember exactly. Does anybody remember? Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, mere Zameer mein hai dum, and something like that he says. I'm so bad at remembering dialogues, but what I'm trying to say is that if you are so grounded, if you are so much, in touch with your ego is in check, nobody can manipulate you. Nobody can, do anything, because ego khatam ho gayi hai na. अब आपको कोई कैसे मैनिपुलेट कर लेगा? वो आपको पैसे से नहीं खरीद सकता, वो आपको कुछ और चीज का लालच नहीं दे सकता, वो आपको कुछ नहीं कर सकता. तुम तो बहुत ही खतरनाक बन जाओगे, बिकॉज लाइक यू आर योर सेल्फ नाउ, कर लो जो करना है. तो उसमें, you can always make the right choices.
No, whatever you said right now, to be very honest, for me, I was feeling it as the character arc of Kyle. I mean, that was very interesting. I mean, even in the book for that matter, because you've taken 3 generations. There's Kayla, the younger child in the book, and then there's Kyle, who's the what is she? She's in her 30s, late 30s, somewhere around that, and her mom. So there were 3 generations we are talking about. One, Kayla, is she's just so curious. She wants to find everything. She's in love with the nature. She just goes run around, talk to even the birds and the plants and everything. Somebody very jovial and energetic. And then you have Kyle and the mixture of all those characteristics we are talking about. And then they had the senior generation, Madhu, who had a lot of wisdom, who was talking about, we're explaining things, who was explaining life and a lot of things like that. Now 3 characters here have 3 different phases of life. And now just coming back to what you were talking about, ego, and each of the phases, okay, keeping aside the little Kaina from out of this, Kyle also had her ego playing in the book. And then at least somewhere towards the end, I think she had it at a check. Even Madhu, for that matter, even though she was somebody who's supposed to be very spiritual and knowledgeable and understanding, even she did have her flaws at the end of the day. These character arcs that you built, were these intentional, like you wanted to build it like that, or when you started, were you clueless on how to go about with them and it just flew in for you?
So yeah, of course it was flowing, but I think what I also had in my mind is, so Kaina, as you rightly said, is a child who's full of life, right? Maybe that is how even Kyle's childhood was. But now sometimes it irritates you because you can't be that innocent child which you are. So it's also in a way triggering Kyle in many ways, that you don't understand, you're so immature, that kind of a thing. And Madhu, who's evolved, who is learned, who has so much knowledge, you rightly said her ego was not in check because she always wanted to flaunt her knowledge. She always wanted to tell that she knows it better. And I think that was the trigger point for Kyle, because she was always, as a child, also being told that, okay, this is how you need to do, this is how you need to be, all of that. So what I wanted to kind of show, because I cannot take Kyle out of the life that she had, which is a personal life, to show her transformation. Because, and we were in fact joking about, sibling and that, because your traumas lie in your childhood. What really are things that bother you. And even when you are on a spiritual journey, a lot of times you will be absolutely okay around new people, new friends, new setting. But the moment you'll go back to your family, those things will, be triggered. They'll start to trigger because, it's very difficult to detach yourself from your childhood. And a lot of times in our subconscious mind, those impressions are so strong that we are not able to find a closure to that. So everywhere you will be perfect, but you go back to your family, and you are not okay. You know, you're like, here I'm not able to have that monk demeanor. What is happening? Why am I getting triggered? So that's exactly what I wanted to show through this book, that what are the trigger points, why you kind of, you know, feel the way you feel, and how you avoid those those things which you need to confront.
Interesting. So another theme that you're talking about in your book is also grief. I mean, these are very heavy topics that you were trying to build it in, and how each person deal with grief is completely different. And Kyle, in her own way, was dealing with her grief. But somehow, like I said in the introduction, instead of being weak because she lost her husband in an accident, she actually became stronger. So was this, while you were writing, were there any points where it felt a little too heavy for you to go on?
It did, actually. It did, because to really get into a mind of a person who's experiencing grief to an extent that, you know, they, you know, even, you know, thinking about suicide or things like that is very difficult. And also to understand where this is stemming from. So a few things which I was trying to put across were, one is that she didn't have an emotional hook in her life. She placed the entire emotional, you know, whatever emotions were there in her life on this person, Abir. Everything. So he was the person who would ground her and would
he was literally the cornerstone.
He was literally the cornerstone. And now, even though there were responsibilities in her life, there were everything, obviously people she loved, but there was nobody she could talk to. Because that was the only person she was talking to. So one was that angle. And the other thing was that the guilt of that she was driving the car was so strong. You know, because she was responsible for the person she loved the most, you know, I mean, passing away. So that guilt was huge. So you kind of, as a person, when you are in that spot, I you know, I can only feel that, and, you know, as an outsider, but I think it's too heavy to kind of take.
Even as a reader, for that matter.
So a lot of times I think we miss these things, is what I feel like. You know, even when, let's say, if a friend is going through something, we don't see that so deeply. You know, we just, and I think mostly people who are in depression are just told, okay, just move on, and you know, just, it's okay, you know, just kind of divert your mind here and there. So diversion is never the right thing. You know, you will keep going back into the same
Once
thing.
the diversion is over, you'll come back.
Exactly. So you need to sit with that. You need to understand where is it coming from. And I always say that patterns repeat in your life. You know, it just keeps repeating. If you'll not cater to it right now, it'll come in some other form, because these are your life lessons. You have to learn it. You cannot avoid it. So if there's a lesson that the universe is trying to tell you, you need to learn. Just listen to the universe and just learn that lesson. And you can only learn it by deeply feeling it in, you know, in that full consciousness and awareness. That's the only way. There is no other way.
More than like a marketer, you're talking like a psychologist now. So what are the psychology books that you're reading now?
So the one which I'm reading right now is Body Keeps the Score. I mean, that's written by a psychiatrist. So it's very different kind of book.
I wish you read that book before you were
I mean,
treating with Kyle, because that would have helped you.
Absolutely. I wish. I mean, I think every good book that you read, you always wish that you read that
a little early. I mean, at least maybe that book would have helped you helped Kyle deal with her traumas a little better, maybe.
Maybe. But I mean, I don't see it like that now, though. I mean, maybe earlier I used to feel that I wish this happened before. So I think I have just accepted that this was meant to happen now. So
it's a good way.
So I mean, I'm so happy that I picked up now, and I am thinking about my next book, and there are 3-4 plots already in my mind, and I'm yet to decide which one to pick. And you know, I think the other day when you wrote to me and you said the book is soulful, and I was actually writing a psychological thriller already, you know, like the story plot was in my mind, but it was just feeling very heavy because it was a little dark kind of a book which was coming together. Though the story in my mind, I felt, and I told some of my friends, they said it's great, you know, I mean, we've never read a book like this, but when I was thinking about it, even when I was writing the plot, it felt very heavy. And I felt that light which is there in this book, that's missing. Though the moral compass, everything will come in later.
Yeah.
And I thought that's my premise. But then I thought, and when you exactly wrote that thing, soulful, then I was so clear that my book has to be soulful. I may write all of that genre later at some point, but I think I need to feel that from inside, that, there is this positivity in it. Like the person, when they read, they should not kind of feel drained.
Yeah.
They should feel uplifted. So
even though they get drained, they should come back.
Yeah, they should come back.
By the end of the book.
Yeah, by the end of the book. Absolutely. Yeah. But then if people are reading it halfway, then they'll be only drained.
Oh yeah, then they'll be like drained and lost all the way. Please complete the book.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very, very important. That's interesting. So you're saying you were working on 2 other plots as well.
Yeah, so I was actually not sure which one to pick, but I think I'm now kind of sure, but still, because other ones were halfly done, I did not kind of I don't have the full story in my mind yet. I just have the arc and the very like a skeleton outline of it. But I could guess that this is what I want to write, though. That's why I'm going to Dharamshala to just sit with
figure it out.
Figure it out.
We need to talk once you're back from Dharamshala. So in the books that you're writing right now, is there anything in the last 1 year during your writing or during your publishing journey or anything like in this era of just thinking about writing and leaving aside your old diaries and poetries, anything that you would completely do differently for any of the upcoming books?
So I think as a debut author, it's always challenging, because you are so focused on writing that you are not sure as to how to kind of proceed. You don't know the right places to go or the right people to connect with. I think to some extent I have learned, I mean, obviously maybe just 10% of what I should know, but still I couldn't see some, right paths in front of me right now. So obviously I want the book to be, nicely edited, to be, something that if a person picks, they should not feel that, okay, this could have been better, that kind of a thing. Definitely I don't want. So I really want a publisher who can take care of that, or a good editor, definitely. So so that's a must, I guess. Now so I'm not in a rush to publish fast, because I think when it's your first novel, you also want to do fast. You also want it to be
milestone.
Like, sometimes it starts to feel like a milestone, which it shouldn't, but it does. How much you try to be spiritual and this and that, but there is this clock ticking in your mind. I don't want to miss the World Book Fair. I don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss that award. All of those things will play in your mind. But I think as a person who has already written one book, I think the second one definitely has to be right per se.
Makes sense. So while you were in your publishing journey, I'm sure there were multiple questions that you had in your mind, but maybe perhaps you didn't even get answers to it. If there is something that you really learned while in this journey and you want to pass on that message to any of the upcoming authors who you think, if I had that information, it would have been way better. I mean, anywhere, in your writing, in your publishing, in your marketing, anywhere. What is that one information that you want to give away to people?
So as I said, I'm still learning, honestly. I feel that just spend time to go to every publisher available in the market today. Have patience, reach out to everyone, the traditional as well as the literary agent, and everyone, because it is a patience game. And a lot of times you will feel disappointed also, because people are not very responsive. But if you really want it to be, out there in the right way, be patient. I think patience is one thing which, as an author, you need to learn. There is no other way. You have to be patient in many ways. So I think that's one big lesson which I had in my journey. And I think I think every author's journey is very different. It's very different. So it's very difficult to put say that this is what every author is learning, but I guess patience is something which everyone eventually learns.
What was the best part of this journey?
Oh, best part is always the reviews, the messages. I mean, because I dedicated this book to my mentor, and I remember talking to him and telling him that even if one person tells me that this book helped them in the right way, if it changed them to be a better person, if they felt something, I'll feel that I have achieved my goal. And I mean, I think I've overachieved my goal because there's so many people writing to me, and it just feels so good. It just feels so good, and maybe that's the way, and that's the reason I'm so motivated to maybe work on the second one, because it is a time investment, it is a cost investment, it's everything. As an author, we don't get anything in return.
You only end up spending.
Apart from those messages that we receive from you, which is, I think, what an author is always craving for. So I think when you get that's exactly when you feel that it's worth the investment that you've put.
That's interesting. But thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today, because it's not an easy book. The book deep dives into so many topics, which is really close to your mind and your heart, and it's not really always, I think, easy to talk about it. And I'm sure every single time you're on a conversation with a book, there will be some of the other things that's coming out which you never normally talk to people, and then you end up talking about it in public, right?
Which is so true.
Is there any way that the book has changed you as a person in the journey of writing this?
Absolutely, I would say totally. Because I think I was not ready to place this book out there. I think I was very impatient. I was also at times getting angry on my own daughter for her attention. Because there are phases when you just want to keep on writing endlessly. You go crazy. You don't see the clock. You don't see your daughter is hungry. I mean, call me a bad mother. But and then I'm looking at the clock. Oh my God, I'm not giving her dinner. What am I doing? So you also go into that guilt as to how selfish can you be as a mother. So I was learning all of those lessons. And I think I was literally, in a way, living Kyle's life.
It reflects. Now when you're talking about it, I was again connecting it to Kyle.
Because you just want to talk about themes, but sometimes in that journey you realize that you've not learned your lessons fully. And this book is actually because you need to learn. Forget if anyone else will benefit. First of all, you understand what are you writing about, and you change yourself first.
You reread the book then.
So I mean, sometimes I go back to my own book and it's also very fascinating sometimes when I'm reading my book and I'm so in awe. I'm like, wow, did I write this?
Did I think so deeply?
I mean, because it does happen with me a lot of times, and I'm like, and I'm just reading, and I think there's somebody who saw me reading my book in the office, and I'm like, okay, are you thinking I'm a crazy person reading my own book? But I mean, it does happen with me, and I mean, I actually wanted it to be a book that you can keep going back to. And also because there are a lot of Bhagavad Gita quotes in it, and also I mean, a lot of people especially my mother tells me that she doesn't understand Bhagavad Gita and what's written in that. So I felt even if I try to explain her, she still it's very out of context. I'm not able to understand. Then I used to be like, there is no one book where all of those themes are, or maybe I don't read too much. They're there, and it's also in a way like storytelling, right? Because people don't want everything heavy in one book and then no context, or you need to understand, right? Ye to theek hai, but ye formula kahan use hoga?
I think nowadays majority of the books are like very genre mashed up. Majority of the books are either which way. So I think yours is also like that, because I can always say it is a fantasy thriller, but it's just not that. There's a lot of things in the book.
So I still don't know what. So you just told me fantasy thriller. I'm taking that. But every time people ask me what is the genre, and I'm like, what kind of author is she? She doesn't know the genre.
It's a mix of
because it's mix of so much. Because I feel it's about transformation. It's spirituality definitely there, because somebody who's not a seeker may not like this book. I mean, I'll be very honest, I mean, and I think you told that in your review itself, and I think that's the right thing to do, because if you're not seeking something as heavy as this will just be like, oh my god, why did I even book this
Yeah.
book? So yeah, I mean, and then there are so many people who who are going through grief, who want to kind of reach the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
They want somebody to hold their hand and take
True.
them on the other side of the
Yeah.
bridge. So I think this can do justice to them,
Oh,
and I
interesting.
think that audience would be the right audience
I
for
hope it
this book.
does.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing all of these experiences with us today. If I give you 45 seconds to just talk about your book, what your book is about and why somebody should read it, go ahead.
Okay, so I think if you're a seeker and if you are maybe going through some bit of grief in your life, and you also want you really want a book that holds your hand and take you to the other side of the bridge, I think this would be the right book for you.
Oh wow, that was actually a good one. And it didn't even take, I think, 20 seconds. So that was a good job with that. But seriously, guys, it's a great book that you can definitely explore, because it explores a lot of things that we in general do not really talk about, which is why I like the book also. But thank you so much for taking the trouble to come over, having these conversations, and I wish you all the very best in the next books that you're writing. I really hope that the dark thriller turns into something more comforting and soulful again, like you wanted to, and
Wow.
hoping to see that the baby by the end of this year or next year, the book actually comes out.
Wow, that will be so nice. And thank you so much, Nagma. And it was obviously not a trouble to be here. It's so nice to be with you on this show. I think we spoke a lot of things which I usually don't share. So I mean, you're a great host. You got me into
Thank you.
speaking so much today. And yeah, this was lovely. And I'm so happy that you said that the book should be out, because I don't have a timeline in mind, but I also want those wishes. So thank you so much.
Definitely. And to everybody who's watching, let's go, do check it out. And we will be back with another author and another conversation very soon. Till then, keep reading. The next show by Nagma